So, Brian, you brought up arguably the best tight end in college football, Michael Mayer. Question number one is, because there is no question here about his ability and what it looks like at the tight end position, how does he compare to some of the great Notre Dame tight ends, number one? And number two, is there going to be a complementary guy that's going to be significant in that offense as a second tight end?
It's a good question. In regards to the first part, I can only talk about tight ends in my lifetime. Like, I never saw Ken McAfee play. I never saw Dave Casper play at Notre Dame. I never saw the only time I ever saw Mark Bavaro play, he was in a Giants uniform, right? Like, I can't compare him to those guys. And then you look at the greats of the Lou Holtz era, the Derek Browns, the Irv Smiths, they never really produced. I mean, we pointed this out on our show, like Irv Smith is considered this great player. He never caught more than 20 passes in a season, right? I mean, Derek Brown never caught more than 30 passes. They produced all these high draft picks at tight end, but none of them ever actually put up numbers, because of the type of offense they played. And, so then you kind of look at the great production Tyler Eifert had, and they've had Kyle Rudolph. I mean, they've had a ton of great tight ends, but I mean, Michael Mayer, if he can just kind of be what he was last year, even if he doesn't improve, I think he goes down to the best tight end of my lifetime, right? And again, that's all I can compare it to, because production's tremendous. He already has well over 1,000 career yards after just 2 seasons. He had, set a Notre Dame record last year for catches in the season with 71. I think he had 840 yards, which also was a Notre Dame tight end record. He had 7 receiving touchdowns, which is a Notre Dame tight end record. And when you can shatter all those Notre Dame, records for a tight end in one season, and you're a true sophomore, you're pretty good. And the thing about that kind of excites me as an observer of Notre Dame and a lot of Notre Dame fans, is he was a true sophomore last year. And there's parts of his game you say, look, he's a good route runner for his age, but there's areas where his route running can continue to improve. There's areas where his run blocking has to improve. And then even more so, it's like, okay, now that he's a junior, his volume from absorbing the offense is going to be even greater, which means maybe you can change his usage. So maybe they play him out wide a little bit more, like they did Tyler Eifert back in 2011 and 2012. Maybe they can use him, detached from the line of scrimmage more. Maybe there's some certain things where, you could go with an alignment of Lorenzo Styles, Avery Davis, and Braden Lindsey, and you say, there's not a true boundary guy in that group. Lorenzo Styles, the biggest guy, like 6'1", 186, 187. Maybe there's not a true boundary receiver. Well, yeah, there is. It's number 87. He's 6'5", he's 250, and he runs pretty fast. You put him in the boundary, and then you put your 3 really fast guys to the field, with Chris Tyree in the game, and it's like, okay, pick your poison. Do you want to put numbers over here to help you with all the speed, which means you got to go one-on-one backside, or are you going to double team Michael Mayer back there, and then you're going to have at least one-on-one either with one of the receivers, and then you're going to have to deal with the running back and Chris Tyree. So there's a lot of potential matchup issues there with Michael Mayer, because you can move him all over. And now that he's a junior and he's got some time under his belt, you feel more comfortable being able to handle those things. Because look, Mark, you can move him wherever you want. You can put him at boundary, slot, outside, attached, wing, but you have to have a package that's effective out of all those things, right? Like, there's got to be things you do out of those things that impact and scare the defense. And I think that's where you hope that you'll see that from Notre Dame this year, is where, teams are going to look. What's Ohio State's game plan going to be next year? It's simple. 87 is not going to beat us, because they don't have anybody else on offense that's proven to be that guy, right? Because Kevin Austin is gone, and Kyron Williams is gone. It's like, hey, 87 is not going to beat us. So the best way you can help Ohio State accomplish that goal is just kind of leave them in 2 positions, right? Well, the way you make it difficult for Ohio State to stop him is to say, hey, you're not going to ever know where he's going to be. And then he's going to do different things out of it. And then you see how Ohio State defends that, or whoever, Ohio State, Cal, Marshall, North Carolina, whoever. And then you say, okay, here's their Michael Mayer game plan. Now here's how we're going to use our other weapons to complement that. And, what we don't know is if one of those other weapons is going to be a number 2 tight end. And obviously 12 personnel, 2 tight end, 13 personnel, 3 tight end. That's been a big part of Notre Dame's offense in recent years. And that's a little bit of a question mark right now. You've got Kevin Bauman's the elder statesman of the rest of the group, because George Tack has transferred to Boston College, which is a great pickup for BC, by the way. And he gets to kind of, play with Phil Dracovic again, who they came into Notre Dame together, if you remember, back as part of the 2018 class. And, so you got Kevin Bauman, who was a classmate of Michael Mayer. He was a 4-star recruit that gets overlooked a lot, and he's been injured a lot. And then you've got Mitchell Evans, who's a guy that Notre Dame staff is very high on. He's 6'7", he's 240. He was a quarterback as a senior in high school. He's got some ability, but he's got a long way to go from a developmental standpoint. Kane Barong's a guy that there were some folks in Notre Dame are very excited about, but he tore his ACL late in the year in practice. You've got Eli Raridan, Holden Stace coming in as true freshmen that are really talented. Eli Raridan tore his ACL playing basketball in December for his high school basketball team because he's a really good basketball player. So there's a lot of talent there, but a lot of question marks. And so right now, I don't know who the second tight end is going to be. And I'll say this, if one of those two tight ends, Mitchell Evans or Kevin Bauman, don't separate sort of during the spring, they're going to have a hard time holding on to a job come the fall when Kane Barong comes back and when Holden Stace and Eli Raridan show up. Because right now, I don't know who that guy is going to be. None of those guys are necessarily great blockers right now, and that's really the primary objective for the number 2 tight end. So that's going to be one of the few position battles that is really open right now. Because, Mark, I mean, you watch Notre Dame, the number 2 tight end is kind of like a starter as much as they play 12 personnel. I mean, you're playing starter snaps in a lot of instances. So who that guy is going to be is going to be one of the more interesting battles, and somebody has to win the job. It can't just be a thing where, well, of the 2 guys that didn't play well, you're the best, because Notre Dame doesn't have to play that guy. They can go 11 personnel, they can go 20 personnel, put a second running back on the field. There's a lot of different things they can do. They don't have to go 12 personnel. So if they're going to play a lot of 12 personnel, that second tight end is going to have to earn that spot. And that's right now a big question mark right now as we're kind of 4 practices into the spring.